that's what you're thinking. So it's primarily myself and Luke, but also some colleagues at Keel here. So Ian, Adam, and Steve, as you can see on that list, and also Tim Grossi, who's our industrial partner for some of our courses that we're doing from RSK. Next slide, Luke. So we've had a little bit of experience with this. Obviously, lots of people have been talking about that, so I'm not covering the background. We've also done a little bit of educational e-gaming as well back in the day. That's probably about 5 or 6 years ago, but that was more of a immersive experience where students would wander around the pre-made area trying to find where I buried the body in this example, and what techniques you'd use to find them. So that went quite well, and we recognised the importance of students learning at a different pace, or they couldn't access it at certain hours, and wanted to repeat the exercise to sort of increase their student learning. So we can see the importance of that, but that was quite a lot of effort. So we didn't really want to go through that route. So we went down this route instead, using these Thinglink. So we started off doing a very simple test site. So we basically set up a scenario on campus. Keel's very green and leafy in the Midlands, if you don't know it. So got plenty of areas we've used to find things again. Students tend to like that in a sort of a real world setting. So, you know, you're trying to find a leaky pipe, or you've buried things, you're trying to find them again, that side of things. So this is the setup, as you can see here. So we've set up an area, we've taped it off. We said this is the search area you're going to be looking at, and then we've recorded it with a 360-degree camera, which I think other colleagues have given you examples of in this conference before us. And then we did some sort of phone introductions. And then we did some little footage of each of the equipment, and then students can then at their own pace look at each bit of equipment, short explanations, and then this is how you collect it. Of course, it's not the same as doing it yourself, but it's very good for an introduction. And obviously at that point we couldn't do any physical teaching anyway. And then Luke did all the whizzy stuff, which he'll show you, I would think. Yeah. And then we'll go through that maybe. So.
Yeah, so luckily we got Thinglink probably about a year prior to COVID, because we were looking into creating virtual tours for most of the overseas field trips, obviously for people who couldn't go, and it'd be useful to do a bit of pre-planning with some of the virtual field courses that we did. And me and Jamie have been talking about making equipment videos for over 2 years now, and one thing after another, we didn't have the time to actually do it. But then COVID hit, and we actually managed to find a bit of time to actually get stuff done. So we did start off with sort of a simple one. This was a bit of a trial one, wasn't it, really? Yeah. The Keel forensic test site, but it was quite useful because the students couldn't actually come, could they, at the time, to come to the site. So we went up there and did the filming ourselves, showing what they should have been doing. I can spot this one up here. Nice, just simple slide that you start off with. Really is just something that I made up in PowerPoint. It's just the first screen they're going to see, and then we did a little bit of an introduction video, which is the first thing that they'll see when they get to the Thinglink. We would have sound, but I'm having trouble to get the sound playing. But it's only short, and you don't want to hear too much James speaking.
I know, you get bored of myself. Yeah. I'll put the link in the chat, by the way, for the two Thinglinks, so you can always look at that later or now if you wish.
Yeah. Now this was filmed just on a handheld phone, a phone and a gimbal. So we did have a bit of a problem because it being so dark under the trees and being so light outside, the phone camera is a bit limited. It would become quite light on Jamie's face, and it would struggle with the darkness behind and the light outside. So there was a bit of a flaw with that one there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he plays that video for you, and then it allows you to get to the actual forensic test site that we created here. Now this was the site. We recorded this in a video format with the 360 camera. The downfalls of recording it in video is the quality is not as good as if it was a 360 still. We do get the advantage of seeing the site moving a little bit and the leaves and trees blowing in the wind. But we got a test site here, cameras smack bang in the middle, and then set up all the equipment up around it. And then we started to develop the information and to create short videos, which we embedded into the actual Thinglink itself. We'll click on this one, for example, this one here. You can make your information boxes on Thinglink. You can include little videos of people actually using the equipment. You can even get this to talk to you as well. And so obviously people have trouble seeing or reading, you actually speak to you and read the text that's on the screen. And we embedded the videos which Jamie had made, just quick, short videos about a minute really, just going through the equipment.
If we give them a bit of background theory, just because they probably don't listen to you when you're giving it in a more lecture type setting, and then we show you how we collect it, and then collecting the data, and then afterwards, obviously, we give them the data and they can work that up. So they're sort of getting that experience, although it's obviously not the same as them doing it themselves. Simon, I noticed in the chat was asking, is it a Theta 360 camera?
So this one was actually done with the Theta 360 camera. Yeah, it was the Theta 5, but because this one was quite a successful thing, as well as some of the virtual field trips we did, we got a little bit of budget allocated to us, and we got the Ricoh Theta Z1, which is the highest spec camera. And that would handle this a lot better because it handles darkness and brightness on the same image a lot better. So obviously, this is the early version, but it would be a lot better now.
Yeah.
Great thing about Thinglinks as well is you can stitch in other videos and other 360s into the site. So this was a success at the time when the students were actually around. We actually did get a video of them actually playing with all the equipment.
Yeah, this is what they could have done.
Yeah, this is what they could have done. Yeah,
it's a bit unfortunate.
This is what the site does usually look like. So it's nice to be able to include that into it as well, and it's good that you can sort of navigate on the Thinglink itself. There is ways of putting these videos into these Thinglinks where it sort of takes over the whole screen. But I found it's a little bit better when you just have it in a little screen on the main Thinglink. You have to upload it as a separate video and then embed it. But yeah, it works quite nicely this way.
Yeah. Someone was asking, did they find it? Well, problem is, I put it in that long ago now that the data's not brilliant, so I slightly cheat and give them some data.
And the ground, you clearly see this
see little dips.
Yeah, dips where the pigs were. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that worked reasonably well. It wasn't great, but for the practical which they couldn't go to, it's been quite useful. We're going to use this anyway as a sort of a pre-familiarisation this year, assuming we can still do practicals, or students can't meet, or they miss it, or they're ill, or they didn't quite understand. So they've still got that resource, which is quite handy, which is what we wanted to do to start with, didn't we? We never got around to it. So it's sort of giving us the push to generate those. Have you got the PowerPoint? It's not in through PowerPoint, is it? It's the next one.
What one do you want to see?
To see if there's any more technical bits that they might want to know.
Back on the PowerPoint.
Yeah. Not mine. The
Oh, okay, yeah, just to see how I created some of the
Thinglinks themselves.
The Thinglinks. Well, that was done for the next one.
Okay, cool.
Wanted.
Yeah.
So I'll get the PowerPoint back up just so we can.
I think that's everything we covered.
See where we're at. So this is the virtual one.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're happy with that one, so then we moved on to as Luke mentioned, we got a bit of budget, so we managed to get. Buy some more equipment, so a decent video camera and some little sound things as well because sound's a real big problem with hand.
Yeah, 360 cameras don't record the best sound either. So with this virtual practical, because we were focusing on individual pieces of equipment at one time, we thought it would be best just to go for a video camera and not bother with the 360 stuff. It just wouldn't benefit from the 360 at all. So we got these wireless microphones, which we attached one to Jamie and one to the camera, and it's literally direct sound straight to it, and came out very clear. It's on them.
Yeah, especially for things like wind or passing vehicles, because some of these test sites where we buried a wall and filled it in again, that's right next to our campus road, as you can see in the background of that photo. So that's a bit problematic with a normal phone.
We got to play a little bit with Premiere Pro because we got given the Adobe Premiere suite, and the things that Jamie's talking about, you're holding up sort of theory diagrams, weren't you?
Yeah.
We managed to plug them into the actual videos itself, so that flashes up when he's talking. You get to see that in a minute. The great thing about Thinglink as well is you can link to external content on other sides. So we've got the links to the website on the Thinglink that you'll see in a minute. And because your Thinglink is shared as a video file, with Microsoft Teams, you can share video files as a tab at the top of your conversations. And that's really handy for when we started this 10-week course for the NERC geophysics.
Yeah. So
people had access to the Teams page, didn't they? And we can literally upload each week the new practical that we created on a week basis. Should we get into that one?
Yeah, if they're happy.
Yeah. How long have we got? Maybe do live time.
Sound. See chat yesterday. You need baffles, it says.
You need baffles.
Not sure what that means.
Is our sound? See,
I don't know. Maybe they can't hear us.
It's probably just me and you talk too fast.
Give us some more information, Simon.
Right, so where we are, it's this one entity I want to show. First of all, I can show that that presentation of the overview.
Oh, microphone recording. Not sure what that means.
So here we go. This is what we decided to upload into Thinglink instead of the 360 images. It's just an overview shot of all of the equipment that we were talking about that day, and we created these sections here where we put the Thinglink buttons onto the actual Thinglink itself. We also included a download data section here, and then the move to the next week section here, which would be activated each week.
Thanks, Simon.
You reading
I'm reading the chat.
Obviously, each week we had different equipment, and we took pictures of them every week. Some days we forgot to do it, so I just ripped a picture out of the video of Jamie whacking this slate here, yeah, we uploaded them to the Teams channel every week. I'll go into the actual Thinglink itself so you can see what that looks like. Actually, I'll tell you what, I can go to it on Teams, can't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. So this is what the team would have looked like and what everyone would have been able to see. And as you can see, if we started at week 3 was when the virtual practical started. We've got a tab here at the top, and you would have clicked on that, and it would have literally shown a video file, which is the Thinglink here. We've created some nice little slides here. We'll mute that so that you can talk over it.
So yeah, we just gave them some background for each of the scenarios and how we generated the thing they're trying to find each week. This example, we just sort of an archaeological or geotechnical wall detection technique, and we try a different technique each week to see how best it would find it or not. And then there's equipment configurations that optimize that detectability. So which is what they would have done in the practical, and in fact it's probably better than the practical because we've got everything laid out.
Yeah.
We aren't having technical difficulties, the batteries aren't charged, or the weather's bad, or whatever. So obviously there's all that sort of stuff. I'm sure from someone was saying you've been chatting about that last week, so that's quite useful. And then we've just gone through each bit of kit in some detail actually. So we use this for both the second year undergraduate course, just to get which they wouldn't have had that much familiarity with near surface geophysics, but we also ran it each week as part of sort of PGT, PGR, and even early career course in geophysics in some detail. So there's sort of a mix of of expertise, I guess, there. So obviously I didn't cover as much in the second year course as we did with the full NERT course, but they got the idea of how to do it, and we went through that in some exhausposite detail, which I'm sure
yeah.
Luke got stuck.
I was sick of his voice by the end of it, like it really was. Especially when you're editing the videos, you have to hear it over and over again.
So he's thoroughly bored of me talking, but we didn't actually do that much preparation with the talking. I think we just went through each bit of kit, so I didn't spend a lot of time in prep, did we really?
No. And here's where the data was downloaded from the actual screen that you can get to as well.
Yeah.
The link to the school website, which was posted on there once, and then we can just link straight into the Thinglink.
So that was quite useful. So then they can say, well, here's the data we've just collected. Right now you've got to work it up. So, and again, from this course, there's people dialing in from Greece and other overseas areas, as well as all over the UK. So that actually works out better than if they did it physically. Previous iterations of the course was just at Kiel, where we could only limit it to 18 people, whereas because we did it virtually, we got up to 55, I think, were registered. So that was really useful to have that advantage in some ways, I would say. No one else is talking on the chat, so I don't see any more technical questions.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much shown what we've got managed to do with the Thinglinks on this course. Anyway, the feedback was quite good on this one.
Yeah, they really appreciated firstly appreciate we were running it. Obviously, the opportunity to look at each bit of a kit, and of course they can do that not within our scheduled sessions. We had an evening session and an afternoon session each week on both courses, but of course they can look at that again if they wish. And in fact, when we ran it physically, we spent in previous iterations of the courses, it was mostly like, oh, here's some kit. We started talking about that, and then sort of topic goes off to jobs and stuff like that. Whereas this time we managed to go through the whole gamut of how you design your survey, how you would actually collect your data or set the survey up, collect your data, and then here's the data that you've had before. And then we had a lot more input with the software companies this year, proprietary software mostly for the different equipment, to try and see and give them that sort of familiarity and how to process the data a little bit. And we didn't go as far as integrating all of it into some sort of fancy 3D model, which maybe you would do if you did it in full set. But at least they could see the whole process through that. So, and obviously some students, you can sort of do some analytics, went through everything. They're quite methodological, I guess. Other students, obviously a bit less keen, shall we say, and sort of did the minimum. So again, there's that whole sort of, how best do people learn? So I like that format, and now of course we've got it. I think it was, it's going to be really useful going forward. Some of it I messed up. I think the size bit one, I'm not as great, so I didn't quite get the configuration right. So we'll have to redo those. Yeah. But I think most of the others were other than optical. I think I didn't do optical survey neither, so I'll have to do that as well. But I think that's really useful.
Some questions have come in there.
I know, look at that.
Yeah, it was a Feature 360, definitely, not the GoPro. To be fair, I haven't really played around with the GoPro very much.
No, we have got them, but we haven't really used the posh camera. You can see the camera behind us, actually. I think
Feature 360 is always very nice for the scene like the one where we did it in the Peel Woods, where the French test site. You can put all of the equipment around you, and then you just go around and click on it on the Thinglink itself. But obviously for this one, it was a little different. We knew that there wasn't going to be much showing up.
Some resent upgrade to TL, impressed or not noticed. What's TL?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means.
Derek's saying, will you retain an online course in the future, maybe in addition to person training?
Well, it's great that we managed to get all the recordings done. Once then you can literally repeat this whenever you want, can't we?
Yeah, no, we are going to keep it both for undergrad teaching and if not do fund another iteration. Now it's all there. Of course that's going to be great.
Debbie's asking, once you master the Thinglink, how long will it take to put each session together? Obviously, the recording could take about all morning, couldn't it? The recording.
Yeah, it depends how the show was.
Yeah, and the weather permitting. But once you've got, because I've been playing around Thinglink quite a while now, and I know it's the video editing that took the longest. Obviously, try and get all these pictures and everything into there. I could do it in about half a day or a day to get everything looking quite polished. So a couple of hours. Depends how long these videos are, because there's a lot of editing, especially with dual camera setup that we had. Trying to get all the videos stitched together and as professional looking as possible, but luckily time wasn't a factor because of COVID. I just had all the time in the world to actually.
Well, you were quite flashy, weren't you? So you had like the big camera set up.
Yeah,
and you'd have another one to sort of.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I had a camera set up on a tripod for my Zoom shots, and then one set up like permanently just filming him, which was that's how I wanted it.
David's asking what GNSS GPSs are using MLIDs. Yes, we're using MLIDs, David.
MLIDs, yeah. We do it. We use a two system, don't we? It's Reach RS. We have one set up as a base station and one set up as a rover. I think you might have seen Jamie with a rover on his back there.
Click on the survey. Brian said you had data download area. I assume students would work on this and submit it. Yeah, so there's some data that they could actually say, here's the data already collected, and then decide what you're gonna do. I mean, it depends which course we use. The second years, it was quite simple. Here's some data and just make some graphs. Is there a gravity low over the bridge? Whereas for the sort of the more advanced session, we'd then compare that maybe with previous data or getting to go through the whole process of reducing the raw gravity data to sort of Bouvier, if you know that.
A lot of questions.
There is, Linda. How much support did you get from your uni department to set this up?
It's just me and you.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot, to be fair. Yeah, we did spend quite a bit of time on it. Probably this last year, I haven't done much else than teaching and admin, but now it's all there, isn't it? So, like most of you, I'm sure you've pre-recorded your lectures and your practicals, you've digitised. All these video resources we've got now. So, moving forward, it's going to be a double this year. I've got everything, but not a lot of support, Linda, I'm afraid.
360 videos doesn't always add value. Yeah, no, I agree for this one, definitely. Plus, I think once you get past the flashiness of 360, it isn't actually very practical. I mean, it's always, everyone reverts always back to these old-fashioned ways where 2D is just actually much easier to learn from.
Yeah, I say you spend a lot of time editing it as well.
Yeah,
so that'd be a bit.
Well, that helps, getting the editing in. I tell you, I was when you got heckled that time by the people passing by in the car, like.
That's your students going past.
This was right here, wasn't it, when I was doing this bit?
I remember that. Catherine saying, to use existing resources by North Wales trip, and it took about a day to put everything together. It was quite short and simple. I'd have always said, yeah, okay, you can make really simple ones. I think some of my colleagues have done that, so they've just got a Google resource. I don't know if previous people have talked about that, and just link it to static photos and maybe a quiz or something. That's very simple, actually, and it still looked quite nice.
There are some super flashy ones, especially that Adam created.
Yeah, just show them that maybe. We've got
shall show them this one? Yeah, this one.
We've got a virtual one.
He's created a paper on this one as well, which has been submitted and published. And it's like we were talking about how you can use virtual education like this, and he had a few students saying what they thought of it and everything, and the response was really good. But he spent a long time on this. Now, I mean, I know that I spent quite a bit of time on video editing. He created like animations for all of this, and it was absolutely amazing when you look at the level of detail he went into it. He can literally show you the complete machine. It'll teach you like all the method behind it, and then you can actually run it, the XRF yourself. And he created all animations for it. So you can't hear it, but it does beep on my screen. He did all this in PowerPoint somehow. I don't know. He did
yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So you basically do it rather than physically doing it. And again, we'll keep these resources now they're there, and I think we're talking about expanding it as well. So I'm getting a bit behind on this.
Someone's seen this one here. It's amazing. Better than all lab videos. He has done a fantastic job of this one. He's now just moved into an area of Kiel where he'll be developing this further. They're going to be doing virtual lab for us, and that'll be so helpful because literally the students can learn everything they need to know about this equipment from here. And if you did get the results for them, or you did the data for them, you could actually publish their data on here, and they can come into this category here and find their own personal data. I mean, it must have taken him months to do this. I mean, this is what you can do with how polished the product you can get with Thinglink.
And saying, I like the idea of showing the operation. Yeah, he's quite keen on the detail, Adam. I think this is going to be a really good resource. So he's going to start, as he's moved on to the educational department here, he's going to start doing this for not all of our kit, but also all in our natural sciences faculty. So I think he's going to, the next few years, going to have a lot of stuff out there. Brian's asking, will the resources be available to others? I don't know. I have to talk to Adam about it. I think it will be, because I think the paper we've submitted, I think that's going to be give a link to it.
You said this one is a public resource, or maybe one that you have to link out to people. But I mean, he's done a couple. There is one with Dynex as a virtual microscope that he did as well.
You do those, don't they?
I think he was working on a laser sizer here too. Yeah, option to the microscope. I mean, there's all sorts of the things that we were working on prior to me and Jamie creating this Thinglink. I was creating one for the Open Day as well.
Yeah, Anna's asking, what software does Adam make to make the animations?
I'm pretty sure he just uses PowerPoint. It is literally he maximizes PowerPoint to its limits. Like he's done a great job of that, to be fair.
Yeah.
The great thing about Thinglink as well is obviously you can embed from other websites. So if you've taken drone footage of various locations of campus, for example, like we did here, you can upload that into Sketchfab, and then you can stitch them into your campus. Now this was GG around campus, so we were trying to sell GG and how we use the campus as our laboratory, don't we? Really?
Yeah.
You can go around campus and see all the different places that we actually use as our test sites. It is a bit jarring, but we do use these spaces, don't we, for GG? Yeah. And we can put all the drone footage in there too. That's another cool thing that we can do with our Thinglink.
Maybe we should let him give any more general questions. I think Brian's keen to. Can we stop sharing, or?
Yeah, we can stop sharing if you want. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't need to bother doing any sharing for that. You've timed yourselves nicely and answered all the questions. Thanks very much indeed, Jamie and Luke, for that. And I think you did a good job of acting as a, if you like, a virtual attraction for the Kiel campus. We've got another 5 minutes or so. Any more questions people would like to come either on the share chat or audio?
If we answer everything. But...
tried to.
Brian's asking about shareable resources, all the rage, but they've dropped away. I mean, that's probably true actually, but I think people seem more positive, especially this last couple of years. We all realise we're, you know, all in the same boat, aren't we? Trying to make resources. So we're certainly keen.
I think that was a function of the fact that a lot of resources were getting expensive, so that let's go into a share mode about it. And there were several projects on that. But when everything came to depend on student grants, it became attracting numbers and not invented here type syndrome coming in. So it's because these things are a lot of investment and nobody can do it exactly right, even for their own students, using different aspects of it. And I think the fact that you've concentrated on the techniques and the instrumentation is a very good one, because students can go out into the field and be absolutely fumbling unless they really know what's going on. So that's a good way of actually using virtual presentations. Any more questions? Oh, Leslie's asking, have you thought about getting students to create content?
We're not going to the proposal you've done.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. I think Leslie's chatting about getting students to create content. We're putting in a proposal with the Heritage Lottery to buy a load of this equipment and then get the public to actually collect data. That's more on a wartime British resistance project, I think. But yes, we're going to train people up virtually and then get them to do it, or the public. Not so much on the students, I guess.
Well, they'll be trained. They'll be creating their own content, won't they? Because there'll be I think about 30 licenses where they can all access Thinglink and create their own content.
How much is that? Do you remember?
I think it's about 1,200 quid or something. I was quoted on it. Yeah. But I'm quite friendly with the guy at Thinglink because I've been dealing with him for a while. We did a blog video together with one of the Thinglinks over the. My
7-year-old's produced a Thinglink about pandas. That's cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
She'll probably teach you about it, to be honest. I think I'm gonna get a bit beyond on the technology. That's impressive.
You can create quite simple Thinglinks, can't you? Even with the free version, you don't need the premium version. You can still upload 360 photos and add all information to it. Obviously, we've got a premium package, so it takes away all the branding of Thinglink and makes it look quite fancy, doesn't it, really?
A bit more. Well, say those Thinglinks I've put on the chat, you can use them yourself. I know Bangor Uni are using my geophysics side because they teach marine mostly, but I said, we'll just use that. So it's there if you want it. So you have to listen to me then, sorry. You seem happy about this.
Okay, well, we're coming up to 1:45. Any more final questions? Okay, well, Jamie and Luke and team, and notice our old friend Ian Stimpson's there in the background somewhere. Thank you very much indeed. That was most informative and lively and very illustrative of what you can do and what students can do. Thanks very much indeed.
No problem.
Okay, I'd now like to introduce another keynote from Emma Peasland, now at the University of Leeds. Emma has a background in science education and having taught biology and environmental sciences and geography at the FSC for several years, and then went to Hull and then is on a postdoc. And a lot of that's concerned with an action plan for industry and higher education and collaboration, but maximise student degree graduate employability. So that's basically, I think, what she's going to be talking about. So if Emma's there, if you'd like to come up on the screen, Emma.
Hi, yeah, I think I've got my camera on. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't at the moment see you. At least I can't.
Oh, I can see myself, but that's no great consolation.
I can see Emma.
Okay, cool. So I don't know, Catherine, do you want me to share my slides from here, or do you want to do it from your end?
Yes, I don't know whether Anybody else has got a frozen screen? I've suddenly got one, and I've got a mail in from somebody else to say that they have.
Okay.
Just to come in there, I think maybe Catherine's actually currently frozen. So Emma, if you wouldn't mind sharing the slides at your end.
I'll do my slides from here then, yeah, no problem.
Hopefully we'll be fine. Hopefully it's just a little glitch.
Okay, we can see that now, Emma.
Brilliant.
Right. Okay.
Okay, great. So thank you for that introduction, Brian. So this afternoon I'm going to talk a bit about how I think we can design and deliver fieldwork to maximise the employability benefits for all graduates, regardless of, or for all students, regardless of the kind of career they want to pursue. And to do that, I'm going to share some of the research and findings from my PhD, which focused specifically on fieldwork and the employability benefits of fieldwork. So I'd like to take a moment just at the start to acknowledge the University of Hull and Advance HE, who funded my PhD, and also Dom Henry, Leslie Morell and Graham Scott at Hull, who were my supervisory team. Since we're talking about employability all afternoon, I thought I'd start by just sharing this definition of employability that I worked with throughout my PhD and then subsequent postdoc, which also focused on employability. And the reason that I chose this particular definition is that it relates specifically to HE, but also it clearly identifies these three groups of qualities that make someone more employable. So skills, understandings or knowledge, and personal attributes. This afternoon, I'm going to concentrate on the skills component of employability. And the reason for that is that I'm thinking about diverse careers, and so the discipline-specific knowledge that students gain during fieldwork might not be relevant to all careers. And also, it's suggested that we can't necessarily teach personal attributes. So whilst going on a field course might, for example, make some students more confident, it couldn't maybe be expected as an outcome for all students in the same way that we could perhaps teach them how to use specific field techniques. And so they fit into that kind of skills bracket. So that's where I'm going to focus my attention. And then with skills, they can be generally grouped into these two groups of technical skills, which are role or discipline related and include things like field techniques. And then transferable skills, which are those that are applicable in a wide range of roles, such as teamwork, communication, numeracy, planning, problem solving, organisation, and so on. And just a quick note on what I mean by diverse careers. I think it's really important to acknowledge that not all graduates find or seek a career that's related to their discipline. And for example, when I asked over 300 students what their career they planned to pursue, there was a group of around 30% who either didn't know what they wanted to do or were planning to actively pursue something not related to their discipline, such as being a police officer or a personal trainer. I think there was one student who wanted to make furniture. So it's really varied. And in that context, perhaps it's these transferable skills outcomes that are key if we want to make sure that fieldwork is preparing students, all students, for any career. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some findings from three important stakeholder groups here. So firstly, students, and they're important because they need to be able to identify the skills that they've developed and provide examples when they participate in recruitment tasks. Then teaching staff who provide those opportunities for students to develop skills. And finally, employers who are ultimately responsible for assessing the extent to which students have successfully demonstrated their skills. And so starting off with some of the findings or the data from students, what these did is these data helped me to kind of understand what the characteristics were of a field course that helped students to develop transferable skills as well as technical skills. And so just a note to say, actually, I'm going to talk a lot about transferable skills this afternoon, but that's not because I think they're more important than the technical skills outcomes of fieldwork or the technical or disciplinary knowledge. It's just because I think those technical skills and the disciplinary knowledge are kind of the focus often of field course design, and those gains are perhaps a bit more inevitable than the transferable skills gains. So that's what I'm going to kind of focus on mostly this afternoon. So I collected data from students on 3 different field courses, and these were all options for the same final year bioscience field course module. And so they all followed the same structure because they had the same learning outcomes. And so they started off with a period of staff-led fieldwork. And in this period, the staff directed students' investigations, and they introduced them to new sites, new field techniques, sometimes new kind of concepts and learning as well. And then this was followed by a period of student-directed fieldwork, where students worked in small groups to plan and undertake their own investigations. And I collected data using a fieldwork skills diary, and I was interested to know what skills the students identified as outcomes from their fieldwork, and also whether they were different in these 2 different phases of the field course. So each day the students reflected on these 2 questions. So what fieldwork did you do today, and what skills did you develop, and how? There's a list of the skills that those 61 students collectively identified. So I think there's about 21 different transferable skills there, and then there was also a big range of technical skills, including around 20 different specific field techniques. So I thought this was quite a comprehensive list. There was quite a lot of skills there, but I think it's important to notice, or to note rather, that perhaps the fact they were participating in this research, so they were invited to reflect, might have increased the number of skills they identified, and otherwise they may not have identified all of them. And then I mentioned I was interested to know whether the phases of the field course influenced the skills students identified. And so if we look at the technical skills, first of all, they identified significantly more of those during the staff-led phase, but the opposite was true for transferable skills, and they identified more of those in the student-directed phase. So thinking about explaining these differences, well, in the staff-led phase of the fieldwork, the technical skills outcomes were often signposted to students. For example, in field course briefings, the different techniques and skills they were developing might have been kind of pointed out. But this wasn't necessarily true for the transferable skills students might also have been developing. But also, students learned numerous different technical skills in that staff-led phase. So every day, or perhaps half day, they were being introduced to maybe a new site, a new set of techniques, a new investigation. And then thinking about that student-directed phase, in this phase, students were delegated responsibility for tasks that would have fallen to staff in the first phase of the field course. And so these kind of tasks required them to use and maybe develop more transferable skills. So, for example, they had to plan their own investigations, and they had to do their own risk assessments and things. Then also, this second phase of the field work, by virtue of being a second phase, is an opportunity to revisit perhaps the same sites they've been to earlier in the week or fortnight, to use the same techniques, to be working in that same kind of knowledge area. And so this is maybe an example of a spiral curriculum, or this iterative design. And so the theory is perhaps each time students revisit their learning, the cognitive load of the activity is reduced in some way. And so they have a greater capacity to either deepen their learning or develop additional skills alongside the previous learning. And so it's a little bit relates to that novelty space that Alison was talking about yesterday morning. So to summarise perhaps these kind of characteristics of a field course that appeared to help students develop and recognise skills, they were that students were delegated autonomy that required them to use more transferable skills, that the field course had this iterative design, that some skills were signposted may have helped with identification, and as might the fact that students were invited to reflect on their skills development each day. So having identified these characteristics of a field course that perhaps help to develop and help students to identify skills, I was interested to understand to what extent these were a kind of a beneficial side effect of the way fieldwork took place, or whether they were purposefully integrated aim of the field course. And so to find out, I interviewed 11 members of academic staff who were responsible for organising and running at least one residential field course. And I also performed an analysis of some of the documents that went alongside those field courses. So there were the module specifications, more of a kind of a staff-facing resource, and then some of the teaching materials, such as field course handbooks, which were more of a student-facing resource. And so starting off with a little bit of the data or the findings from the interviews. In the interviews, I asked staff, firstly, what were the outcomes for students who were participating in their field course? And then also what skills, I specifically asked what skills they would develop. And all but one of the staff I interviewed identified transferable skills as outcomes of their field course in those two questions. And they did often discuss the fact that the field course might help to contribute to students' professional development via skills. But most of the time when they discussed this, they were talking about technical skills and disciplinary careers. And in fact, one of the field courses was specifically designed to help students to get a suite of technical skills that were needed in a particular disciplinary career. So two of the staff who identified transferable skills outcomes kind of linked these to students or graduates' employability. And one of those two, acknowledged that some students might not want to seek a disciplinary career, and therefore these transferable skills could be really important for them. So staff were aware of these transferable skills outcomes that perhaps they were providing, but maybe not linking those explicitly to employability in the future for these students. And then these are some of the data from the module documents, so the module specifications and teaching materials. And we can see on the left a list of different transferable skills. And these were the skills that were identified as outcomes in the module specifications. And there obviously are the number of specifications that each skill was in. And then if we compare those numbers to the teaching materials column, what we can see is that rarely were the skills kind of fully translated into the teaching materials, so that the numbers are obviously lower in the teaching materials column. And so this perhaps suggests that if these skills are not being signposted in the fieldwork and they're not being signposted in the documents, that perhaps these transferable skills outcomes could be a bit of a kind of a hidden curriculum for students. And in fact, one of the teaching materials was a field course handbook. And at the start of every day, it had a little briefing about what skills the students would develop each day, but only ever listed technical skills. So the transferable skills just didn't feature at all in that, which I thought was interesting. I'm just going to pick one of these briefly, which is team or group work. We can see here that this was identified as a skills outcome in 5 of the field courses. But in all 11 module specifications, it stated that students would work in groups or teams at some point. So we could perhaps infer from that team or group work skills could have been developed on all of these field courses. And so the modules, the author of the module specification may have been aware of this outcome and not thought it was important and needed to be included or relevant to be included in the module specification, or they may not have been fully aware of this opportunity that they were providing. So potentially some transferable skills outcomes may be hidden to staff as well as students. So although people were aware to some extent, but perhaps not fully aware of the contribution their field courses might make to employability with regards to transferable skills, all but one of the field courses was designed using these perhaps skill developing pedagogies of delegated autonomy and iteration that allow students to develop transferable skills. And these are some of the ways in which those methods or pedagogies were incorporated into the field courses or the modules more widely. And there was one field course that didn't use these approaches, and that field course took place during Freshers' Week of the students' first year. So it was quite kind of busy and directed, and was perhaps as much a team building field course as a disciplinary learning field course. So with reference to that kind of earlier question of whether these transferable skills outcomes are a side effect or whether they're a purposeful aim of fieldwork, these data perhaps suggest that in this context they were a bit more of a side effect, and maybe there's some opportunities here to make them more explicit for both staff and for students. And then moving on to this last stakeholder group of employers, here I was really interested to know whether employers thought that fieldwork could develop skills, and therefore whether fieldwork could be used as a valid example of skills development when graduates were seeking employment. And so to collect data from employers, I first of all hosted an online questionnaire, which was open to employers across all sectors. The only criteria for being a respondent was that you were involved in the recruitment or line management of graduates. So there were 40 responses to that, and then of those 40 respondents, 6 agreed to participate in a later semi-structured interview to explore the topic further. And so in terms of whether employers recognised that fieldwork could develop transferable skills, these are the results from an open response question in which the employers collectively identified around 16 different transferable skills that they thought students could develop through fieldwork. So this suggests that, yes, they do think that fieldwork could develop transferable skills. And interestingly, teamwork and communication were the most frequently identified, and they were also the most sought after transferable skills. And then in order to understand whether fieldwork provided a really good example of skills development or evidence of transferable skill development, in the interviews, I asked the employers which was the best of 3 examples that graduates might give to evidence their teamwork skills, or not necessarily which was the best, but whether any were stronger than the other. So the first one was they participated in a sports team or a society. The second was something related to part-time employment that was unrelated to the role they were going for as a graduate. And the final one was they worked with their peers to plan and undertake a small group investigation on a field course. And what the employers collectively said, and this answer kind of shows nicely, is that they didn't mind. None of them was a better example. The really important thing was that the example was well constructed. And so what they were looking for was, first of all, evidence that the interviewee or the graduate knew what good teamwork looked like. Secondly, a really good example of them participating in an effective team. And they wanted them to be really clear about what they'd done that contributed to the success of the team. So they wanted them to be talking about it in terms of what I did and not in terms of what we did as a team. And then finally, a reflection that showed what they'd learned from that situation that they would apply to future teamwork scenarios. So this is perhaps a model answer, but what was clear was that it wasn't necessarily a common answer that employers received. And they talked about the fact that often graduates didn't necessarily recognise all of the transferable skills that they'd developed through their degree programmes. And so perhaps this suggests that it's not enough for us just to ask students what skills they've developed during a field course, but actually they need a little bit more scaffolding. And indeed, when the students responded to their fieldwork skills diaries that I talked about earlier, they often just listed skills. They didn't talk about how they developed them. They were just like teamwork, planning, organisation, and that was the extent of their answers. So perhaps giving students some kind of scaffold like this that encourages them to reflect specifically about what they've done to develop a skill and how that skill might be applied in their futures would help them to kind of get the bones of what could be turned into a really great example to use in a recruitment task. And maybe they could work with, for example, careers professionals to turn that into a really great example. And in fact, it's perhaps worth saying that in one of those 3 field courses I talked about earlier, the skills diary was included in the students' field notebook that they had to complete. And so for these students, their reflection was marked, and it wasn't marked to say how well they developed the skill, but the quality of the reflection was marked. And the depth or the extent of their reflections from that field course was quite different from the others where they just listed the skills they'd identified. And so perhaps this kind of scaffolding could encourage students to really or could surface those skills development opportunities or the skills students have developed through their field course for them. So to summarise then, I think that there are perhaps 3 things that we could do in designing and delivering fieldwork to help maximise employability for diverse careers. So the first one is to design and deliver fieldwork that incorporates these pedagogical approaches or that help students to develop transferable skills alongside their technical skills and disciplinary learning. So this iteration and student autonomy. To signpost the transferable skills that students might develop through fieldwork, as well as the technical skills, so both in module documentation and teaching materials, but also perhaps during fieldwork. So for example, at the end of a briefing, we could ask students how they're going to work in their group to plan their time, to do all the tasks they need to do in the time they have available, and highlight the extra skills they might be developing in this scenario. And then finally, to provide a small amount of time, perhaps on field course, to help students to reflect on their skills development and maybe provide, certainly in early encounters, a scaffold to help them to do that. So that kind of summarises my findings in that respect, and the actions that I think we could take to make fieldwork or to maximise those transferable skills outcomes for as many students as possible, regardless of their career plans.
Good, thank you very much indeed, Emma. That was really terrific. And looking at all of the questions coming up, it clearly shows that you've prompted a lot of discussion, mostly I think sympathetic with you about all sorts of things. We've got around about 8 minutes for further discussion, so if anybody would like to chip in, but if not, I'm going to just read out some from Linda York. Controversial points here, but what the background of those staff? Have they worked in industry outside of academia prior to working in the academy? You've always worked in academia. It is much harder to embed employability in your courses that aren't discipline specific. Did your questionnaires produce any sort of answer to that, Emma?
Yes, I do remember thinking about this. I have a feeling that it was a mixture of people. So quite a lot of people were pure academics, but there were a few people in that staff interview sample who had who had worked in industry or were working in partnership with industry. So one of those academics who talked about the fact that linked transferable skills to future employability did that by recounting a conversation they'd had with an employer. But yeah, I mean, from my experience of being a student, I think I can certainly relate to that. In my master's, there were a lot of academics who highlighted employability links who were and they had all worked in industry before having an academic job.
Okay, thank you. There are 2 related ones here from Julia and Leslie. Do you think learning outcomes introduce unintelligible jargon, for instance, skills development and outcomes? And how do we write these clearly so that students can more clearly identify what they are learning? And Leslie says, I often think we just assume that students understand how they are developing transferable skills by some sort of miraculous osmosis. I like that term. Signposting can be helpful, but I'm certainly finding that self-reflection is critical here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Leslie's comment there that reflection is really key in helping to identify how you've developed, because yeah, just having things pointed out I think is less impactful for people. So yeah, definitely would agree with that. And someone said something, there was something in there about how do you get students to identify skills, was there? I forget.
Yeah, yes. In other words, just by giving it a name, it may go over their heads. They don't actually know what's going on or how it should be dealt with.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, I think this kind of perhaps listing them in a field course handbook, and the extent to which the students will pay attention to that is maybe variable, but I think that there is potentially value in having highlighted those skills, because it just kind of brings it to the forefront. But then I do think that reflection is key in really surfacing that for the student and being able to provide an example, because that's what's key in evidencing your skills development when you're actually looking for a job. You know, I mean, anyone who's been involved in recruitment will have read job applications that say, I can work in a team, I can communicate, but don't provide good examples, and then not the people who invite for interview.
And notice on one of your slides, you had interpersonal skills with respect to teamwork, but that seemed to come very low on the appreciation of employers, I think it was. Yes, that's the one. It's sort of right down more or less at the bottom. That actually relates to something that I'm looking about, interpersonal skills. And I don't know whether you've seen it, but there's a new book out by Erica Dwan, Digital Body Language, How to Build Trust and Connection No Matter the Distance. And that's really quite illuminating, especially as we go more into a digital as opposed to hands-on in the field and personal contact. And I think there are a lot of things associated with what we might do better. For instance, mixing groups up if we're working in teamwork, so that students are not working with their friends necessarily, which they wouldn't possibly be in a real life employable environment. So self-choosing of groups is, I think, one thing that we could try and avoid, and get groups mixed up rather more.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be effective. And I think, so yeah, looking at that slide, it has interpersonal skills on it. And I think interpersonal skills is perhaps it's a bit of a nebulous term, isn't it? Is it the ability to communicate, in which case it's perhaps communication skills, or is it the ability to compromise or something like this? And I think that's a product of the fact I used an open response question there rather than a list of skills that employers could tick, for example, because I wanted to see what they came up with. But yeah, and I agree about the kind of mixing up of groups, and I feel like I've read something, I can't remember if it was in a paper or something, about students actually enjoying being given or sometimes having autonomy taken away to help them to develop these the confidence to then have later autonomy. So this involved like investigation topics, but equally I feel like I've read something about it applying to self-choosing groups as well.
Okay, yes, we could go on a little bit more about that, but any more? We've got about a couple of minutes left within this session. And anything else that people like to chip in on? Just having a look at the other.
Just to say, I don't seem to be able to contribute to the chat this afternoon. I've had some mixed Teams functionality over the last couple of days. So if anyone wants, if there's any questions in there that I haven't answered, if anyone wants to contact me on email or Twitter, then I'm happy to carry on the conversation that way.
I mean, there has been so many good questions, not just in this session, but throughout the meeting. I think we might, as a team AFL, look and see how we might accommodate some of these other ones and distribute the overall knowledge. But that's something for afterwards. Okay, Emma, thank you very much indeed. I think that was appreciated by everybody without a doubt.
Great, thank you for having me.
Thanks very much.